The panic attack hit Gianna Castellano in the middle of her father's annual charity gala, surrounded by 400 people in designer gowns and enough diamonds to fund a small nation. The only thought in her oxygen-deprived brain was simple: get out, get away, find somewhere no one can see you fall apart. She made it to the private wing before her vision tunneled completely, stumbling past security who knew her face well enough not to question a Castellano wandering where guests weren't allowed. The spa room her mother had installed last year appeared like salvation. Temperature-controlled pool, steam room, complete privacy from the circus happening 3 floors below. The dress came off in shaking hands. The corset that had been crushing her ribs for 4 hours abandoned with it. She sank into the pool fully naked because modesty felt irrelevant when you couldn't breathe properly and your entire carefully constructed life was imploding in slow motion. 3 days ago, her father had announced over dinner that she would marry Dante Russo in 3 months. Not asked, announced. Like she was a business merger instead of his daughter. When she'd said no, Carmine Castellano had looked at her with those cold eyes and delivered his verdict. This isn't a request, Gianna. It's what's best for the family. The family, always the family. The Castellano name, the Castellano reputation, the Castellano empire built on blood and omerta, and her complete erasure of anything resembling personal autonomy. Gia floated in the heated water, trying to remember the breathing techniques her therapist had taught her. In for 4, hold for 7, out for 8. Except her brain kept circling back to Dante's smug face when her father made the announcement, like he'd already won something she hadn't agreed to give. 20 minutes in the pool, another 15 in the steam room, letting the heat burn away the panic until she finally felt human enough to get dressed and return to the gala and pretend she was the perfect Castellano daughter instead of someone actively suffocating under expectations she'd never asked for. Except when she walked out of the steam room toward where she'd left her dress, brain still foggy from heat and residual anxiety, she didn't immediately register that the corridor wasn't empty anymore. She made it 3 steps, completely naked, skin flushed from steam, water still dripping from her hair, before she saw him. Raphael Moretti stood at the far end of the marble corridor, 30 feet of Italian stone between them. She watched him freeze mid-step when he saw her, his expression shifting from neutral to something she couldn't identify before he locked it down with the kind of control that had made him the youngest Don in Chicago's history. Time stopped. Actually stopped. The world narrowing to just this. Her standing there utterly exposed, him staring at her with eyes so dark they looked black in the low lighting, and the awful realization that she was naked in front of the one man she absolutely could not be naked in front of. The word escaped before she could stop it. Fuck. She watched his jaw tighten at the sound of her voice. He moved before she could, turning away with deliberate precision, his hand already reaching for his suit jacket. He shrugged out of it without looking at her, holding it out in her direction while keeping his eyes firmly fixed on the opposite wall. His voice came out rougher than usual, carrying an edge she'd never heard before. Take it. She should have thanked him, should have grabbed the jacket and covered herself and maybe died of embarrassment. But her brain had apparently short-circuited because all she could do was stand there frozen while he stood there not looking at her, both of them trapped in this impossible moment. Her name sounded different in his mouth, almost pained. Gianna, take the jacket. That broke the spell enough for her to move, crossing the space between them on shaking legs and taking the jacket from his outstretched hand. Their fingers brushed for half a second before he pulled back like she'd burned him. The jacket was warm from his body heat and smelled like him, something expensive and dark that she'd been noticing for years without admitting she was noticing. Cedar wood and leather and bourbon. She wrapped it around herself with shaking hands while he remained perfectly still, still not looking. Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. Thank you. He asked the question carefully, like he was choosing each word with precision. What are you doing here? This wing is supposed to be restricted during events. The truth felt too vulnerable to admit. I needed air. The gala was overwhelming. Something that might have been dark amusement beneath the words. So you decided to go swimming, naked, in a corridor. Embarrassment made her defensive. The corridor was supposed to be empty. I wasn't in the corridor. I was in the spa room. I just miscalculated my exit timing. A single word, and she watched his shoulders shift slightly, tension radiating from him in waves. Clearly. They stood there in awful silence, him still determinedly not looking at her. Her wrapped in his jacket, trying not to think about the fact that he'd seen her completely naked and that she could never unknow that he knew exactly what she looked like without clothes. She finally managed, "You can turn around now. I'm decent, relatively." His response came quiet, almost strained. "I don't think that's a good idea." The question slipped out before she could stop it. Why not? The honesty of it hit like a physical blow. Because if I turn around right now, I'm going to be thinking about what's under that jacket, and I can't afford to think about that. Heat flooded through her that had nothing to do with the steam room and everything to do with the way his voice had dropped on those words. She shouldn't have said his name, shouldn't have let it sound like an invitation. He interrupted before she could continue, his tone shifting back to careful control. "You should go back to the gala. People will notice you're missing." Bitterness crept into her voice. "People always notice when I'm missing. That's the problem." She saw his head tilt slightly, like he wanted to look at her but was restraining himself. "What's going on, Gianna?" The use of her first name instead of the formal address he usually employed made something in her chest tighten. Before she could stop herself, the truth tumbled out. "My father wants me to marry Dante Russo." The temperature in the corridor dropped about 20 degrees. His voice went flat and dangerous. "When?" She forced the words past the tightness in her throat. "He announced it 3 days ago. Apparently it's already arranged. I just forgot to have an opinion about my own life." It wasn't quite a question when he spoke again. "And you don't want to marry him?" The answer felt too obvious to state. "I don't want to marry anyone, especially not someone my father picked because it's good for the family. But apparently my wants don't factor into Castellano business decisions." Raphael was quiet for a long moment. She watched the line of his shoulders shift, like he was processing something complicated. When he finally spoke, there was steel in his voice. "Your father is making a mistake." She couldn't help the bitter laugh. "Which part? Arranging my marriage or picking Dante specifically?" Steel became certainty. Both. Dante Russo is a liability waiting to happen. He's reckless with money, careless with secrets, and too ambitious for someone with his limited capabilities. Your father should see that. The observation stung with accuracy. "My father sees an alliance with the Russo shipping routes. That's all that matters." He corrected her gently but firmly. "That's not all that matters. You matter. Your future matters. Whether you're happy matters." The words hit harder than they should have. She felt tears burn behind her eyes that she absolutely refused to let fall. Not here, not in front of him. The vulnerability in her question surprised even her. "Why do you care?" Raphael finally turned around. His eyes met hers across the 5 feet of space between them, and she saw something in them that made her breath catch. Heat and restraint, and something darker that looked almost like longing. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "That's a dangerous question," with a more dangerous answer. She couldn't stop herself from pushing. "Tell me anyway." He held her gaze for a long moment before the truth spilled out. "Because you've always mattered to me, even when you shouldn't have, even when I swore you wouldn't." The confession hung between them, charged with years of unspoken things. She felt the weight of his gaze like a physical touch. Her throat felt tight when she started to speak. "We can't." He held up a hand, cutting her off. "I know. Believe me, I know. You're Carmine Castellano's daughter. I'm the Moretti Don. Our families have an understanding that specifically excludes me ever crossing certain lines with you. The question came out smaller than she intended. What lines? His answer was blunt, almost brutal in its honesty. All of them. Your father and mine made an agreement years ago, before I took over. You're protected, Gianna. Protected means untouchable. Protected means I don't get to look at you the way I want to look at you. Don't get to think about you the way I constantly think about you. And definitely don't get to see you naked in corridors, even when the universe apparently has a sense of humor. She should have been offended by the idea of being protected like she was property, but all she could focus on was the part where he thought about her constantly, wanted to look at her differently, was fighting restraint as hard as she suddenly was. The words felt reckless and dangerous and entirely honest when they left her mouth. What if I don't want to be protected? Something flared in his eyes, hot and predatory, before he controlled it. Then you'd still be protected. Because I gave my word, and I don't break my word, even if you ask me to. The roughness in his voice told a different story. Especially then. Gianna, you need to go back to the gala. You need to put on your dress, return my jacket, and pretend this never happened. She challenged him despite knowing she shouldn't. What if I can't pretend? The truth beneath the careful control was undeniable. Then we're both in trouble. Because I've spent 5 years pretending I don't notice everything about you. And seeing you like this just made that approximately 1,000 times harder. Her brain caught on the number, processing the implications. 5 years? The admission came reluctantly, like he was angry at himself for saying it. Since you were 20 and came home from Rhode Island for your father's birthday party wearing that red dress. You laughed at something Teo said and the whole room lit up, and I realized I was completely fucked because I wanted you and I could never have you. The honesty was devastating. She took a step toward him without thinking, watching him tense like her proximity was physically painful. The warning came sharp and immediate. Don't come closer. I'm barely holding on to my control as it is. Boldness she didn't know she possessed made her voice steady. Maybe I don't want you to have control. His counter held firm despite the strain she could hear. Maybe I don't have a choice. Your father would kill me, actually kill me, and I deserve it for breaking my word. Anger made her voice sharp. My father is trying to marry me off to Dante Russo, so forgive me if I don't particularly care about what my father wants right now. She watched something shift in his expression, the careful mask slipping just enough to show the man beneath, the one who wanted her enough to break every promise he'd ever made. The interruption felt necessary before this went somewhere neither of them could come back from. I should go. Thank you for the jacket, and for not looking, mostly. His confession stopped her cold. I looked, not deliberately, but I looked. And I'm going to be thinking about what I saw for a very long time, which is a problem I'll have to deal with later. The question came out before she could stop it. Is that a warning? His answer felt like a promise and a threat wrapped together. It's the truth. Things just change between us, Gianna, whether we want them to or not. She met his eyes directly, letting him see everything she'd been hiding for years. What if I do want them to? He stared at her for a long moment. She could see him war with something internal before he finally spoke. Then we're both about to make some very complicated decisions. But not tonight. Tonight you go back to the gala, smile at the right people, and think about what you actually want. Because if you decide you want this, he gestured between them, then there's no going back. You understand that? She understood more than he knew. I understand. Something in his posture relaxed slightly. Good. I'm clearing this wing for the next 15 minutes. Get dressed, compose yourself, and return to the party. We never saw each other tonight. The question felt important, even though she already knew the answer. We didn't? Confirmation came with an edge of something darker. We didn't. And Gianna, if your father pushes the Dante situation, tell him you need time. Buy yourself space to think. Don't agree to anything you're not ready for, she asked again, needing to hear it. Why do you care? His voice went soft in a way that made her chest ache. Because someone should care about what you want, even if I can't be the one to give it to you. He left before she could respond, disappearing down the corridor with that predatory grace that made her stomach flip. She stood there wrapped in his jacket that still smelled like him, trying to process what had just happened. She'd walked into a corridor naked. Raphael Moretti had seen her, and something fundamental had shifted between them that she didn't think either of them could undo, even if they tried. The walk back to her room felt surreal. She got dressed in a spare gown she kept for emergencies, black silk that her mother said made her look too severe, but she loved anyway. Stared at herself in the mirror, trying to figure out if she looked like someone who'd just been seen naked by a man who'd admitted to wanting her for 5 years. Her face was flushed, but that could be explained by the steam room. Her hands were shaking, but that could be residual panic attack. The fact that she could still smell his cologne on her skin, despite showering, that had no good explanation except the truth. The text from Teo appeared as she was applying lipstick. Where the hell did you disappear to? Dad's looking for you. And Dante's here being his usual charming self. She responded quickly. Define charming. His reply came immediately. He asked if you were warming up to the idea of the engagement. I had to physically restrain myself from punching him. Don't get blood on your tux, she typed back. Mom will kill you. Worth it, came Teo's response. Seriously though, where are you? Her fingers hesitated over the keyboard. Needed air, heading back now. She took the service elevator down to avoid running into anyone who'd ask questions she couldn't answer, and re-entered the ballroom through the side entrance near the catering station. Grabbed champagne from a passing waiter like armor. The gala was exactly as she'd left it. Excessive flower arrangements, string quartet playing something classical and forgettable, people in circles discussing business disguised as small talk. Her mother held court near the windows, resplendent in emerald silk. Her father stood with a group of men she recognized as various family associates, his laugh carrying across the room in that particular way that meant he was closing deals. And Raphael stood near the bar with a woman she didn't recognize, tall and stunning in red, her hand on his arm while she laughed at something he'd said. Jealousy hit sharp and unexpected. She absolutely refused to identify it as such. Teo appeared beside her, following her gaze. Ah, you've noticed Rafe's new shadow. She forced her voice to stay neutral. I haven't noticed anything. The disbelief in his tone was palpable. Right, that's why you're glaring at Serena Vitali like she personally offended you. The name registered somewhere in the back of her mind. Who? Teo's explanation came with barely concealed amusement. Daughter of the Vitali Hotel Empire. Very beautiful, very available, very determined to become the next Moretti Donna. She's been circling him for months. She took a long drink of champagne, hating how much the information bothered her. Good for her. Her brother wasn't buying it. You know she's been positioning herself as the future Don's wife for months, right? Very beautiful, very available, very determined. Finding out he's interested in the one woman explicitly forbidden to him is going to make her reactive. The deflection came automatically. He's not interested in me. Teo's voice dropped to something more serious. Gia, I've watched you not watch him for 5 years. It's exhausting. Also very obvious to everyone, except apparently Dad, who's too busy arranging your life to notice you're actively dying inside. The accusation hit too close. I'm not dying inside. Gentleness crept into his tone. You had a panic attack and disappeared for 40 minutes. You're dying inside, and Dad forcing you to marry Dante isn't helping. She turned to stare at her brother. How do you know about the panic attack? His answer was simple and devastating. Because I know you. You get that look in your eyes when you're about to break, and you disappear to somewhere with water. Pool, beach, bath, whatever. You've done it since we were kids. The observation was so accurate it made her throat tight. She hated that he knew her that well. Loved him for it too. Before she could respond, her attention was dragged back across the room. Raphael had looked up, and their eyes met across the ballroom. She watched recognition flare in his expression before he controlled it, his face going carefully neutral while Serena continued talking, oblivious. Teo's voice held quiet amusement. "He's staring at you." She forced herself to look away. "He's not." Her brother wasn't letting this go. "He absolutely is, and you're staring back. This is the most interesting thing that's happened at one of Dad's boring events in years." Before she could formulate a response, Dante Russo appeared in her peripheral vision, moving through the crowd with swagger that set her teeth on edge. Teo muttered under his breath, "Incoming. Try not to throw your champagne in his face. Mom will never forgive you." The promise came without thinking. No guarantees. Dante reached them with a smile that probably worked on other women, but made her skin crawl. "Gianna, you look beautiful tonight. Where have you been hiding?" She kept her voice even despite the irritation building. "I wasn't hiding. I was unavailable." He completely missed or ignored the distinction. "Well, you're available now. Dance with me. We should get to know each other better before the engagement becomes official." The correction came sharp. "The engagement isn't official." Confidence that bordered on arrogance colored his response. "Everyone dances at galas. And soon I'll be your husband. We should start acting like it." She pulled back before he could touch her. "I don't dance." Something flashed in Dante's eyes, irritation beneath the charm. "Your father mentioned you might need some convincing about our arrangement. I'm happy to be patient, but eventually you'll need to accept reality." The bluntness felt necessary. "Reality is, I don't want to marry you." No amount of patience changes that. Teo started to intervene, warning in his tone, but Dante cut him off. "It's fine. She's spirited. I like that. Makes things more interesting." Anger made her voice cold. "I'm not a horse to be broken, and you're not interesting. You're insufferable." Dante's expression darkened. She saw Teo shift slightly, positioning himself between them. But before the situation could escalate further, a voice cut through the tension. The rescue came in an unexpected source. "Gianna, your mother is asking for you." Raphael had materialized beside them with that eerie silence powerful men seem to cultivate. She watched Dante's entire demeanor shift from aggressive to cautious in the space of a heartbeat. Dante forced casualness that didn't quite land. "Moretti, didn't see you there." The response was flat and final. "Clearly, Gianna?" It wasn't quite a question, more an offer of escape. She took it gratefully. The words came out more clipped than intended. "Excuse me." She let Raphael guide her away with his hand hovering near her lower back, not quite touching, maintaining propriety while everyone watched. Once they were out of Dante's earshot, she asked the obvious question. "My mother isn't actually asking for me, is she?" His admission came easy. "No, but you look like you were about to say something that would make your father's political situation complicated. So I intervened." Sarcasm felt safer than gratitude. "My hero," he corrected her gently. "Hardly, more like damage control. Dante's father controls the southern shipping routes. Your father needs that alliance. You punching Dante in the face, which you absolutely looked ready to do, would complicate things." The protest came automatically. "I wasn't going to punch him." His observation held quiet certainty. Teo was, which would have been equally problematic. They'd reached a quieter corner near the garden doors, far enough from the main crowd that they could talk without being overheard. She turned to face him properly for the first time since the corridor. The gratitude felt more genuine now. "Thank you for the rescue, even if it was just damage control." Something shifted in his expression. "It wasn't just damage control. I don't like the way he looks at you." The question slipped out before she could stop it. "How does he look at me?" His answer came with steel beneath the words. Like you're something he owns. Like your refusal is just an obstacle to work around instead of an actual answer. Bitterness colored her response. Welcome to my life, where my opinions are suggestions and my father makes all actual decisions. The disagreement was gentle but firm. That's not sustainable. She let the exhaustion show. Tell that to Carmine Castellano. See how far it gets you. His next words surprised her. I might, if the alternative is watching you get forced into something that makes you miserable. The question needed asking. Why would you do that? It's not your problem. His eyes found hers with that same intensity from the corridor. Because I told you, I gave my word about certain lines I wouldn't cross. I never said I'd stand by and watch you get hurt. Before she could process that, Serena appeared. Her smile was bright and possessive as she slipped her arm through Raphael's. There you are. You disappeared. I was telling you about the charity auction next month, and you just vanished. The apology came smooth but empty. I had business to handle. Serena finally seemed to notice Gia's existence. Oh, hello, Gianna. You look lovely tonight. That dress is very severe. The response came with false sweetness. Thank you. Severe is what I was going for. Uncertainty flickered across Serena's face. How unique. Then she was pulling Raphael away. We should get back. Your mother wanted to introduce me to someone. She watched him shift back into perfect propriety, the moment between them dissolving like it had never existed. Of course. Gianna, give your mother my regards. He left with Serena attached to his arm like an accessory, and she stood there trying not to watch them go, trying not to notice how easily he walked away, trying not to care that Serena got to touch him casually while she was forbidden from even being too close. Teo reappeared with fresh champagne. That looked painful. The denial came automatic. I have no idea what you're talking about. Her brother's response dripped with knowing. Right, because you definitely weren't imagining creative ways to make Serena disappear. She accepted the glass, needing something to do with her hands. I don't know her well enough to imagine her disappearance. Teo's observation was too accurate. But you'd like to. The admission felt safer than denial. Shut up. His tone shifted to something more serious. This is going to be a disaster. You, Rafe, Serena, Dante, Dad's political machinations. It's like watching a very expensive train wreck in slow motion. She couldn't argue with the assessment. Thank you for that comforting analysis. Teo's next question came quieter. What happened between you two tonight? You've been weird since you came back. The lie came easier than the truth. Nothing happened. Her brother knew her too well. You're a terrible liar. The correction felt important. I'm an excellent liar. You just know me too well. He studied her for a long moment before nodding. Okay, dropped. But Gia, whatever's going on, be careful. Rafael Moretti might be a good man by Mafia standards, but he's still a Don, and you're still a Castellano. That's a complicated equation. She'd already done the math. I know. But knowing something was complicated didn't make wanting it any less consuming. And she was starting to realize she wanted Rafael Moretti more than she'd ever wanted anything in her carefully controlled life, which was absolutely, definitely, catastrophically going to be a problem. 48 hours after the corridor incident, Carmine summoned Gia to his office with the kind of message that wasn't really a request. She showed up in business casual, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. He didn't look up from the paperwork spread across his massive desk. Sit, we need to discuss the Russo situation. She remained standing. There is no situation. I told you I'm not marrying Dante. His eyes finally met hers, cold and calculating. And I told you that's not a viable option. The Russo alliance is critical for our southern expansion. Dante is willing to marry you. His father has agreed to the terms. You will stop being difficult about this. The word felt inadequate, but she used it anyway. I'm not being difficult. I'm being honest. I don't love him. I don't like him. And I'm not spending my life with someone I can barely tolerate. Derision dripped from every syllable. Love. You sound like your mother. This isn't about love, Gianna. It's about family, about duty, about understanding that your personal preferences are secondary to Castellano interests. The pain hit sharp and immediate. My entire life has been secondary to Castellano interests. When do I get to matter? Carmine's response was brutal in its bluntness. You matter when you contribute something useful. Right now, you're a liability. Beautiful, educated, completely wasted potential because you refuse to use the one asset you have, your name and your marriageability. She forced her voice to stay steady despite the hurt. I have other assets. My business degree, my language skills, my understanding of the family operations. He dismissed it all with a wave. All useless if you can't leverage them properly. The Russo marriage gives us access to shipping routes that would take years to develop otherwise. That's leverage. That's useful. Your feelings about Dante are irrelevant. The assertion came quieter, but no less firm. They're relevant to me. Carmine returned to his paperwork in clear dismissal. Then you're more naive than I thought. The engagement will be announced in 2 weeks at the Moretti Charity Gala. I suggest you adjust your attitude by then. The challenge escaped before wisdom could stop it. And if I don't? Her father looked up with an expression that made her blood run cold. Then I'll adjust it for you. You're a Castellano, Gianna. Start acting like one. She left his office with hands shaking and rage burning in her chest, and nearly collided with Raphael, who was apparently arriving for a meeting she hadn't known was scheduled. His hands shot out to steady her. Gianna, are you all right? The lie came automatically. Fine, just leaving. His eyes tracked her face with that intensity she was starting to recognize. You're not fine. What did Carmine say? Exhaustion made her voice sharper than intended. Nothing I didn't expect. I can't do this right now. I can't stand here and pretend everything's fine while you go in there and have meetings about business I'm not important enough to be part of. The assertion came quiet, but absolute. You are important, more important than you realize. Bitterness colored her response. Not to my father. To him, I'm just a bargaining chip, a pretty face to marry off for shipping routes. Something dangerous flickered across Raphael's expression. He told you about the engagement announcement? The betrayal cut deeper than expected. You knew? You knew he was going to force this and you didn't warn me? His defense came quick. I found out this morning, and I'm here to talk him out of it. The question burst out before she could stop it. Why would you do that? He met her eyes directly. Because it's a bad strategic move. The Russos are unstable. Dante specifically is a liability. Your father is blinded by the shipping routes and not seeing the bigger picture. She pushed harder, needing the truth. Which is? The answer came measured but certain. That marrying you to Dante weakens the Castellano position instead of strengthening it. And I'm going to make sure Carmine understands that before this goes any further. Defeat settled heavy in her chest. He won't listen to you. Confidence radiated from every word. He will if I present it correctly. Trust me. The admission slipped out vulnerable and raw. I barely know you. Why would I trust you? His response was simple and devastating. Because I've never lied to you. Because I told you someone should care about what you want, and I meant it. And because right now I'm the only person in this house who's trying to protect your interests instead of exploit them. Carmine's voice cut through from inside the office. Moretti, are you planning to stand in the hallway all day or actually attend this meeting? Raphael's eyes held hers for one more beat. Go, do whatever you need to do. I'll handle this. The garden beckoned like it had when she was a teenager, needing escape. She found her usual bench near the fountain, hidden by hedges, and tried to process the fact that her father was announcing her engagement in 2 weeks, and Raphael Moretti was apparently trying to stop it. The text from Teo arrived before she could spiral too deep. Dad just told me about the engagement announcement. I'm sorry, Gia. I tried to talk to him, but he's immovable on this. Her response came automatic. It's fine. I'm handling it. His reply was immediate. You're not fine, and you're not handling it. Where are you? The deflection felt necessary. Garden. Don't come find me. I need to think. But he was already there, appearing around the hedge with concern written all over his face and 2 coffees in his hands. The observation came dry despite the circumstances. You look like hell. She accepted the cup he offered. Thank you, that's very comforting. Teo sat beside her with familiar ease. I'm your brother, not your therapist. Comfort isn't my strong suit. Brutal honesty is. The request came tired. Then be brutally honest. Is there any way out of this? He was quiet for a long moment, weighing his words. Not without consequences. If you refuse the engagement publicly, Dad will see it as betrayal. He'll cut you off, probably, and make your life extremely difficult. The reality settled heavy. So my options are marry Dante or lose everything. Teo's clarification held careful precision. Unless someone more powerful than Dad intervenes, someone whose opinion he actually respects. She already knew where this was going. Like who? Her brother's answer confirmed her suspicions. Like Rafael Moretti, who is currently in Dad's office arguing against the engagement on strategic grounds. The question had to be asked. How do you know that? Teo's response came matter-of-fact. Because I have better intel than you do. Also because I was outside the office when Rafe arrived, and he told me specifically what he was planning to do. Which was interesting considering he has no obligation to care about our family politics. The deflection came weaker this time. He says it's bad strategy. Her brother wasn't buying it. He says it's bad strategy, but he looks at you like it's personal, which is far more interesting. She couldn't argue with something she'd seen in Raphael's eyes herself. Teo continued before she could formulate a response. Gia, I love you, but you're terrible at reading obvious signals. Rafael Moretti has been circling you for years with perfect propriety, maintaining exactly the right distance, being completely professional. And now suddenly he's fighting Dad about your marriage? That's not strategic. That's personal. The protest came automatic. You don't know that. His counter held absolute certainty. I know he left his meeting with Dad 3 minutes ago and is currently walking toward the gardens. So I'm going to make myself scarce and you're going to have whatever conversation you two clearly need to have. Before she could argue, he was gone. And 60 seconds later, Raphael appeared around the hedge. Jacket off, tie loosened like the meeting had been difficult. The question came before she could stop it. How did you know I was here? His answer was simple. Teo told me, very specifically told me, along with a thinly veiled threat about what would happen if I hurt you. Warmth bloomed unexpected in her chest. Did he? The observation came with something almost like admiration. He's protective of you. It's admirable. She redirected to what mattered. Did you talk to my father? Raphael sat beside her without asking permission. Yes, he's not budging on the engagement. Disappointment tasted bitter. So it didn't work. He corrected carefully. I didn't say that. I said he's not budging, but I planted seeds, made him think about the instability of the Russo organization, the risks of tying the Castellano name to theirs, the potential complications if Dante's recklessness causes problems. She saw the strategy even as hope felt dangerous. That doesn't stop the announcement. Agreement came with qualification. No, but it buys time. And time is what you need right now to figure out what you actually want. The confession slipped out before wisdom could intervene. I know what I want. I want my father to see me as something more than a bargaining chip. I want to matter for who I am, not who I can marry. I want... She stopped because what she wanted included the man sitting beside her, and saying that out loud felt impossible. His prompt came gentle. What else do you want? The deflection came easier than honesty. Things I can't have. Understanding flickered in his expression. Because they're forbidden. Because your father and mine made an agreement that protects you from men like me. The question burst out, frustrated and desperate. What if I don't need protection? His response held warning and want in equal measure. Then you're more reckless than I thought, because men like me are exactly what you should be protected from. She challenged him directly. Why? Because you're a Don? Because you're dangerous? Because you admitted you've wanted me for 5 years? The answer encompassed everything. All of those. And because if I touch you, if I cross that line, there's no coming back. Your father would see it as betrayal. The alliance between our families would fracture. Everything Carmine has built would be at risk. Recklessness made her voice sharp. Maybe I don't care about what my father built. His disagreement was immediate. You don't mean that. Anger flared hot and immediate. Don't tell me what I mean. You don't get to stand there looking at me like that, telling me you can't have me, and then dictate how I feel about it. The question came low and dangerous. How am I looking at you? The truth spilled out raw and honest. Like you're starving, like seeing me in that corridor broke something in your control, and you're barely holding on. His admission came rough and unfiltered. I am barely holding on, seeing you naked, seeing Dante touch you, watching Serena try to stake a claim I can't challenge. I'm barely fucking holding on, Gianna. The space between them had disappeared without her noticing. His hand came up to cup her face with devastating gentleness, and she felt her breath catch at the contact. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. Then stop holding on. Stop fighting this. The protest sounded hollow even to her ears. I can't. But he'd shifted closer. Close enough that she could feel his body heat, smell cedar and bourbon, and him. The challenge came reckless and necessary. Kiss me, right here, right now. Kiss me and prove this isn't just in my head. His warning held weight. If I kiss you, everything changes. You understand that? Her answer was immediate and certain. I'm counting on it. Then his mouth was on hers, and the world narrowed to just this. His lips hungry and demanding, his hand tightening on her face, his other arm pulling her closer until there was no space left between them. She kissed him back with equal desperation, 5 years of wanting crystallizing into this single, perfect moment. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, foreheads pressed together, bodies still tangled, his voice came rough with emotion and something darker. Fuck. Her agreement was simple. Yeah. The reality check came immediate. That can't happen again. But he hadn't let her go. His hands were still on her like he physically couldn't make himself release her. Her question held challenge. Why not? The reminder was brutal. Because your father will find out. Because there are eyes everywhere in this house. Because someone already saw us. Ice flooded her veins. What? His instruction came quiet and resigned. Look to your left, past the hedge. There's a security camera. It's been recording this entire conversation. She turned and saw it. The small dome camera mounted on the garden wall, perfectly positioned to capture everything. Horror made her voice small. Oh my God. The resignation in his tone told her he'd known all along. Your father watches the feeds, which means he's probably already seen this, which means we're both about to have very complicated problems. The question came automatic. What do we do? His answer held grim acceptance. We face consequences and hope that what we just started is worth what it's about to cost us. He stood and left without looking back, and she sat there in the garden with her lips still tingling and the horrifying realization that her father had probably just watched her kiss the one man she was explicitly forbidden to touch. The summons came exactly 4 hours later. Carmine's text was brief and cold. My office. Now. Teo intercepted her in the hallway, his expression grim. He knows. He watched the security footage twice. Her stomach dropped. How bad? The assessment came brutal. Bad enough that he sent Rafe away without finishing their meeting. Bad enough that he's been making phone calls for the past 3 hours. Bad enough that Mom took one look at his face and left for her sister's house. Perfect. Any other encouraging news? Her brother's next words made everything worse. Franco Russo called. Dad told him the engagement is moving forward immediately, as in, announcement tonight at some family dinner I didn't know was happening until 20 minutes ago. The world tilted. Tonight? Teo's explanation came fast. Apparently watching you kiss Rafael Moretti accelerated Dad's timeline. He's making a statement. You belong to the Russos now, not the Morettis, and everyone needs to know it. The assertion came fierce. I don't belong to anyone. Her brother's response held sympathy. Tell that to Dad. Good luck. You're going to need it. He squeezed her shoulder once and left. She stood outside her father's office for a long moment, gathering courage before finally knocking. The permission came cold. Enter. She walked in to find him behind his desk, a tablet in front of him showing a paused image from the garden, of her and Raphael, caught in the moment right before he'd kissed her. Carmine didn't look at her when he spoke. Sit. She sat, keeping her expression neutral, even though her heart was hammering. The command was simple. Explain. She started carefully. Explain why I just watched security footage of you kissing Rafael Moretti in my garden after I explicitly forbade any personal involvement between you two. The truth felt too complicated. He cut her off with a raised hand. Actually, don't explain, because there is no explanation that makes this acceptable. You knew the rules. You knew why those rules existed, and you broke them anyway. The defense came sharper than wise. The rules are yours, not mine. I never agreed to them. His response was ice. You didn't have to agree. You're a Castellano. That means you follow Castellano rules, whether you like them or not. The question burst out. Even when those rules mean sacrificing my entire life? The answer was brutal in its simplicity. Your life was never yours to sacrifice. It belongs to this family. Every choice you make reflects on us. Every relationship you pursue impacts our alliances. You don't get to be selfish about this, Gianna. Incredulity colored her voice. Wanting to choose who I kiss is selfish? His clarification cut deep. Wanting to kiss the one man specifically forbidden to you is worse than selfish. It's stupid. Do you have any idea what you've risked? The agreement between our families exists for a reason. Luca Moretti and I established those boundaries to prevent exactly this kind of complication. The question came desperate for understanding. Why? Why is it so forbidden? What's so terrible about me and Raphael that requires explicit prohibition? Carmine was quiet for a long moment. Something complicated passed across his expression before he controlled it. The revelation came heavy with history. Because Luca Moretti asked me to protect you from his son, and because before Raphael became Don, before he proved himself capable of control, he was dangerous in ways you don't understand. Luca was terrified of what his son might become, what darkness he carried, and he made me promise, made me swear, that you would never be exposed to that. The information hit like cold water. Raphael asked his father to keep me away from him. Her father's correction came firm. Raphael didn't ask anything. Luca did because he saw how his son looked at you even then, when you were barely 20 and Rafe was becoming something Luca didn't recognize. And Luca loved you like a daughter, Gianna. He wanted you safe. Pain bloomed sharp in her chest because Luca Moretti had died 2 years ago, and she'd mourned him genuinely. Learning he'd been protecting her from his own son complicated everything. The protest came weaker than intended. Raphael isn't dangerous. Carmine's counter held absolute certainty. Raphael is the most dangerous man in this city. He's just learned to hide it better than most. But that doesn't change what he is, what he's capable of. And I will not watch you destroy yourself because you think you're in love with him. The denial came automatic. I never said I was in love with him. Her father's observation was too accurate. You didn't have to. I saw the footage. I saw how you looked at him. And I'm telling you now, as your father, that this ends today. You will attend dinner tonight. You will sit beside Dante Russo, and you will smile when I announce your engagement. Do you understand? The question came small and afraid. And if I refuse? The answer was delivered with devastating finality. Then you're no longer my daughter. You're no longer a Castellano. You're no longer welcome in this house or any family property. You'll be cut off completely, financially, socially, professionally. Everything you have comes from this family, Gianna. Everything you are exists because of the Castellano name. Take that away, and you're nothing. The cruelty stole her breath. She stared at her father, trying to find the man who'd read her bedtime stories and taught her to ride horses and told her she could be anything she wanted. But that man wasn't here. Only Carmine Castellano existed now, calculating, cold, willing to destroy his own daughter to maintain control. The words came quiet and honest. I hate you. His response came without emotion. That's your prerogative. Dinner is at 7. Don't be late. She found Raphael in the parking area getting into his car, ran before thinking about whether it was smart, calling his name before he could drive away. He stopped, turned, and she watched his expression shift from neutral to concerned when he saw her face. The question came immediate. What happened? The summary spilled out breathless. He knows, obviously, the cameras, he watched us, and now he's forcing the engagement announcement tonight and threatening to disown me if I don't comply. Deadly calm settled over his features. He threatened you? The clarification felt necessary. He gave me a choice. Marry Dante or lose everything. Family, money, name, all of it. His voice went hard and dangerous. That's not a choice. That's coercion. The reality tasted bitter. It's my reality, and I need to know, did your father really ask mine to keep us apart? Was that true? Raphael went very still. The confirmation came carefully. He told you about that. Understanding crashed over her. So it's true. Your father was protecting me from you. His correction held important distinction. My father was protecting you from who I might become. He knew I was taking over operations that required certain moral compromises. He knew the kind of man the position would make me, and he loved you enough to make sure you'd never be collateral damage to that transformation. The question hurt to ask. And you agreed to this? You let him dictate who you could care about? Pain flickered across his expression. I didn't have a choice. My father was dying. It was one of his last requests, that I protect you by staying away from you. How could I refuse that? The answer came sharper than intended. By being honest. By telling me years ago instead of letting me think you just weren't interested. His challenge held weight. If I'd told you, would it have changed anything? Your father would still forbid it. My promise would still exist. We'd still be exactly where we are now, wanting something we can't have. The admission slipped out vulnerable. At least I'd have known why. At least I wouldn't have spent 5 years wondering what was wrong with me, that you'd never even look at me properly. The assertion came fierce and immediate. Nothing is wrong with you. Everything is wrong with me. I'm the problem, Gianna. I'm the reason we can't have this. Her correction came with equal force. No, they are. My father, your father, all these men making decisions about my life without asking what I want. I'm so tired of being protected from things I might actually choose if anyone bothered to give me the option. Before he could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from Carmine. Where are you? Dinner starts in 1 hour. Be here. She showed Raphael the message, watched his jaw tighten as he read. The decision came with resignation. I'm going to that dinner. I'm going to sit beside Dante and let my father make his announcement, because I don't have any other viable options. His disagreement was immediate. You're not trapped. There are always options. The challenge felt necessary. Like what? Run away? Live on nothing? Lose my entire family because I kissed you once in a garden? Those aren't options. Those are different versions of losing. He stared at her for a long moment. Something painful worked across his expression. The question came careful and waited. What if you didn't have to choose between your family and what you want? Disbelief colored her response. That's not possible. His press held determination. What if I made it possible? What if I could give you a way out that didn't require you to sacrifice everything? The skepticism was automatic. How? The proposal came measured. Let me handle your father. Let me find leverage that makes him reconsider forcing this marriage. It'll take time, but I can do it. Reality check came necessary. And in the meantime, I just pretend to be engaged to Dante? His plan unfolded, careful and strategic. In the meantime, you buy me time to work. Don't marry him. Delay, stall, find excuses. Just don't sign anything that makes it permanent. The objection was immediate. My father won't wait long. Confidence radiated from him. Then I'll work fast. But Gianna, you need to trust me. Can you do that? She looked at him, this dangerous man who'd admitted to wanting her for years, who'd kissed her knowing it would have consequences, who was now offering to fight her father on her behalf. And she made a decision that was either the smartest or stupidest thing she'd ever done. The answer came certain. Yes, I trust you. Relief and determination warred in his expression. Good. Go to the dinner, play your part, but remember that you're not alone in this. Not anymore. The dinner was exactly as excruciating as she'd anticipated. 20 family members and associates gathered in the formal dining room. Dante beside her, touching her hand every chance he got. Her father presiding over everything with satisfied control. When dessert was served, Carmine raised his wine glass. A toast. To my daughter Gianna and Dante Russo, whose engagement I'm pleased to officially announce tonight. May their union strengthen both our families for generations. Everyone raised glasses, offered congratulations. She sat there with a frozen smile while Dante kissed her cheek possessively, and her mother watched with worried eyes from across the table. Dante's voice came low in her ear. You look beautiful tonight. Soon I'll get to see exactly how beautiful. The threat was clear and immediate. Touch me again, and I'll stab you with this fork. She didn't bother lowering her voice. Dante pulled back, irritation flashing across his face. His response came with an edge. You need to adjust your attitude, Gianna. We're engaged now. That means you belong to me. The correction was automatic. I don't belong to anyone. Dante's counter held ugly certainty. Your father seems to think differently, and what Carmine Castellano says goes, doesn't it? Before she could respond, her phone buzzed with a text. The message was from Raphael. Breathe. You're doing fine. Just a few more hours. She typed back quickly. How do you know I need to hear that? His response came immediate. Because I know you, and because I'm watching. The realization hit. That's slightly creepy. His clarification made her almost smile. That's comprehensive protection. There's a difference. She looked up and scanned the room, finding Teo near the window with his phone out. Realized he was keeping Raphael updated. Her text went back. Using my brother as a spy? Raphael's answer came with dry humor. Using your brother as an ally, he volunteered. The absurdity of it all hit her. This is insane. His response held grim truth. This is necessary. Now smile at something Dante says. Make it look real. Your father is watching. She looked at her father, found him staring at her with calculating eyes, forced herself to smile at something inane Dante was saying about honeymoon destinations. Raphael's final text came quick. Better. Now get through dessert and you can escape. I'll be waiting when you do. The promise of that, of Raphael being somewhere waiting for her, made the rest of the dinner bearable. But barely. She escaped at 10, claiming a headache that wasn't entirely fabricated. Teo caught her in the hallway with his expression carefully neutral. His message was simple. Rafe's car is 2 blocks east. Black SUV. He's waiting. The question came automatic. You're helping us? Her brother's answer held fierce certainty. I'm helping you. If that means helping Rafe too, then yeah, I'm in. Gratitude made her throat tight. Thank you. Teo's grin was quick. What are brothers for? Now go. And Gia, whatever happens next, I've got your back. She found the SUV exactly where Teo said, slid into the passenger seat and let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Raphael pulled away from the curb smoothly. How bad was it? The summary came tired. Dante's possessive, my father's satisfied, and I spent 2 hours pretending my life wasn't falling apart. So pretty bad. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. He touched you. The observation came with certainty. You were watching. His admission was simple. Teo was sending updates, with detailed descriptions of every time Dante put his hands on you. Your brother has a gift for making me homicidal. Despite everything, she almost laughed. He's protective. The assessment came with approval. He's smart. He knows what's happening between us, even if we're both pretending we can control it. The question felt necessary. Can we control it? His answer was honest and devastating. No, I don't think we can. Not anymore. Seeing you with him, watching your father force this, knowing you're trapped, I'm past the point of being able to walk away from this. The invitation came before wisdom could intervene. Then don't walk away. Stop fighting it. The warning held weight. If I stop fighting it, everything gets complicated. Your father will retaliate. The alliance between our families will fracture. People could get hurt. Her counter was simple. People are already getting hurt. I'm getting hurt. Being forced into a marriage I don't want. Losing autonomy over my own life. Sacrificing everything because men made agreements about me without my input. Understanding colored his response. I know, and I'm trying to fix it, but that takes time. The question came frustrated. How much time? Honesty was brutal. I don't know yet. I'm gathering information on the Russo organization, looking for leverage that makes your father reconsider. But it's delicate work. If I push too hard, too fast, it could backfire. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The message made her stomach drop. Enjoyed meeting you tonight, beautiful. Looking forward to getting to know you better. Much better. Raphael read over her shoulder, and his voice went deadly. Dante has your number. The obvious needed stating. Apparently, my father probably gave it to him. Another text came through before she could delete the first. Don't delete my messages. That's rude. We're engaged now. You should be more accommodating. Ice flooded her veins as the third message appeared. I know you're not actually interested. I saw how you looked at Raphael Moretti at the gala. But that doesn't matter. You're mine now, whether you like it or not. Raphael took her phone before she could stop him. His expression went absolutely lethal as he read. The assessment came flat and dangerous. He's threatening you. Her attempt at deflection fell hollow. He's being an asshole. There's a difference. His correction was immediate. Not to me, and you're not meeting him alone for anything. Ever. The protest came automatic. You can't just... But he was already typing a response on her phone. This is Raphael Moretti. If you text Gianna again with anything remotely inappropriate, you'll regret it. Horror made her reach for the device. Rafe, you can't do that. His response was simple. I just did. And he needed to know there are consequences for harassing you. Her phone immediately started ringing. Dante calling back. Raphael answered on speaker. Dante's voice came through angry and slightly panicked. What the fuck, Moretti? You have no right to answer Gianna's phone. The response was deadly calm. I have every right when you're sending her threatening messages. Back off, Dante. This is your only warning. Dante's counter came with false bravado. She's my fiancée. Raphael's interruption was ice. She's Carmine's daughter who you're forcing into an arrangement she doesn't want. And if you push this, if you make her uncomfortable or unsafe in any way, you'll answer to me personally. Do we understand each other? Silence on the other end. Then defiance. This isn't over. Raphael's final word was absolute. Yes, it is. He hung up and handed back her phone. She stared at him, trying to process what had just happened. The observation came slightly stunned. You just threatened a made man, on my behalf, using my phone. His acknowledgement was simple. Yes. Reality check came necessary. My father is going to find out. Dante's going to tell him. This is going to make everything worse. His counter surprised her. Good. Let him tell your father. Let Carmine know that you're not unprotected, that touching you has consequences, that forcing you into this marriage means dealing with me. Disbelief colored her response. That's insane. You're starting a war over me. The correction came with steel beneath. I'm preventing one, because if Dante continues down this path, if he thinks he can threaten or intimidate you, things will escalate. Better to draw the line now. Make it clear you're not an easy target. The protest felt necessary. I'm not a target at all. I'm just trying to survive my father's political machinations. His assessment was brutal, but true. You became a target the moment your father announced that engagement, because now everyone knows you're valuable, vulnerable, and being used as a pawn. That makes you currency in a game you didn't ask to play. The words chilled her because they were accurate, because she'd never thought about it that way, but absolutely should have. The question came small. So what do I do? His answer was simple and absolute. You let me protect you. You stay here tonight where it's safe. You don't go home alone, and you don't engage with Dante until I've handled him. Uncertainty crept in. Handle him how? The response held dangerous promise. However I need to. And looking at him in the dim light of the car, she remembered exactly who she was talking to. Not just a man she was attracted to, but a Don who'd built power on calculated violence, who'd do whatever it took to protect what he considered his. The boundary felt important to establish. I don't want you to hurt him. His qualification came careful. I won't hurt him unless he makes it necessary. But Gianna, you need to understand something. I've spent 5 years keeping my distance, maintaining propriety, honoring agreements made by dead men. But the moment your father forced this engagement, the moment Dante started treating you like property, all of that ended. I'm not walking away anymore. I'm not pretending I don't care, and I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe, even if that means war. The declaration hung between them, fierce and absolute. She felt something in her chest crack open because someone was finally fighting for her instead of just deciding her fate. Gratitude made her voice quiet. Thank you. The response held grim determination. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when this is over and you're free. They drove in silence for a while before she realized they were heading away from both family estates toward downtown Chicago, toward his penthouse. The question came careful. Where are we going? His answer was simple. Somewhere your father can't reach you tonight. Somewhere safe. My place. And sitting there in his car with the city lights blurring past and consequences building like a storm, she realized she believed him. For the first time in her life, she wasn't alone. Even if that meant everything was about to get infinitely more complicated. Raphael's penthouse overlooked the Chicago skyline, with floor-to-ceiling windows that made the city look like a constellation of possibilities. Modern and minimalist, all clean lines and expensive taste without being ostentatious. She moved to the glass while he poured whiskey into 2 crystal tumblers. His observation came quiet from behind her. Your father is calling, 17 times in the last hour. She didn't turn from the view. Let him. The whiskey appeared in her peripheral vision, his hands steady as he offered it. He'll escalate, send people to look for you. The truth tasted bitter even before the bourbon. Then they'll find me eventually. but tonight I'm here." Raphael moved to stand beside her, close but not touching. His reflection in the glass showed tension radiating from every line of his body. The question came measured. What happened after I left the estate? Memory of Carmine's cold dismissal made her voice tight. He told me I'm nothing without the Castellano name, that everything I am exists because of him, that my feelings about Dante are irrelevant because I'm just an asset to be leveraged. His jaw clenched in the reflection. He's wrong. The disagreement came tired. Is he? I have no money of my own, no career he didn't approve, no life outside what he's built. If he cuts me off, what am I? Raphael turned to face her directly, forcing her to meet his eyes. You're Gianna, not Castellano, not Romano or Russo or any name someone else gave you. You're the woman who spent 2 years in Rhode Island studying art because you loved it, not because it was useful, who hides in gardens when the world gets too loud, who'd rather stab Dante with a fork than pretend to like him. Something in her chest loosened at the specificity. You remember Rhode Island? His response held weight. I remember everything about you, every conversation we've never had, every room you've entered that I've left. 5 years of cataloging details I had no right to notice. The confession felt dangerous and necessary. I did the same thing. Noticed when you'd arrive at dinners and leave before dessert. How you'd position yourself across the room but never close. The way you'd look at me for exactly 3 seconds before finding somewhere else to focus. Understanding flickered across his features. You were counting. Her admission came soft. I was surviving, trying to figure out why the one person I wanted to notice me seemed determined not to. He set down his glass with careful precision. I noticed. God, Gianna, I noticed everything. The way you bite your bottom lip when you're thinking. How you always smell like jasmine and something else I can never identify. That you're left-handed but force yourself to write right-handed because your father said it looked more professional. The observation hit intimate and accurate. How do you know that? His answer was simple. Because I've spent 5 years watching you when I thought you weren't looking back. The space between them had disappeared again without conscious decision. His hand came up slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. When his fingers touched her face, electricity shot through her nerves. We keep ending up here, too close to stop, not close enough to finish. The truth beneath his words was undeniable. Because finishing means consequences neither of us are ready for. Her challenge came quiet but firm. What if I'm ready? What if I'm tired of letting other people's promises dictate my life? His thumb traced her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. Then you need to be sure. Because once we cross this line, there's no going back to protected and forbidden. There's only complicated and dangerous and probably ruinous. She leaned into his touch. I've lived my whole life being careful, being good, following rules I never agreed to. And where did it get me? Engaged to a man I despise, controlled by a father who sees me as property, protected from the one thing I actually want. The question came rough. And what do you want? Her answer was immediate and certain. You. I want you choosing me over duty, over promises to dead men, over every reason this is impossible. Something in his control shattered. He kissed her hard and hungry, no gentleness this time, just 5 years of restraint breaking into something consuming. She kissed him back with equal ferocity, fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him closer because close wasn't close enough. When they broke apart for air, his forehead pressed against hers. If we do this, your father will find out. Dante will find out. Everyone will know. Her response held no hesitation. Good. Let them know. I'm done hiding what I feel to make other people comfortable. The warning came necessary. Gianna, I need you to understand what you're saying. This isn't just about us wanting each other. This is about families and alliances and power structures that have existed for decades. If we do this, we're declaring war on all of it. She met his eyes directly. Then we declare war. Together. He kissed her again, slower this time. Thorough. Like he was memorizing the taste and feel and shape of her. When he pulled back, decision had settled in his expression. The instruction came clear. Stay here tonight. Tomorrow I handle your father. I handle Dante. I handle whatever comes next. But tonight, you're safe. And you're mine. The possessiveness should have bothered her. Instead, it felt like relief. She woke in Raphael's guest room at 6 a.m. to 43 missed calls from Carmine and a text from her mother. Your father is having what I believe the kids call a meltdown. Please call him before he gives himself an ulcer. Raphael was already awake, suit immaculate despite the early hour, reviewing something on his laptop at the kitchen island. The greeting came without looking up. Coffee's ready. Your father's been calling me too. I stopped answering around call number 8. She poured herself a cup, grateful for the normalcy of the ritual. What's the plan? His response was measured. I'm meeting him at the estate, 1 p.m. You, me, him. We discussed the Dante situation like rational adults instead of him threatening you with car batteries. The specificity caught her off guard. Car batteries? Dry humor colored his tone. He's very creative when he's angry. Apparently, I'll regret ever looking at you in ways that are anatomically improbable and illegal in most countries. Despite everything, she almost smiled. He really said that? Raphael finally looked at her, something softer in his expression. Among other things, the point is he's emotional, which means he's not thinking strategically, which gives me an opening. Uncertainty crept in. What if he doesn't listen? The confidence in his voice was absolute. He'll listen because I have information he needs, and because deep down, Carmine loves you more than he loves his pride. I just have to remind him of that. The meeting happened in Carmine's office, with Alessia present as mediator. Gia's mother sat with perfect posture and a gun she'd pulled from somewhere when Raphael walked in, aiming it at the door with professional form. Carmine's greeting was ice. You have nerve showing up here after stealing my daughter. Raphael's counter came calm. I didn't steal anyone. Gianna came with me because she felt unsafe in her own home. That should concern you. The accusation landed hard. Gia watched her father's expression shift from rage to something more complicated. Alessia lowered the weapon. Everyone sit. We're having a conversation, not a war. When they were seated, Carmine behind his desk, Raphael across from him, Gia beside her mother, the silence stretched taut and dangerous. Raphael broke it first. You're making a mistake with the Russo marriage. The disagreement came immediate. That's not your concern. Steel entered Raphael's voice. It became my concern when Dante started sending Gianna threatening texts, when he made it clear he sees her as property he's acquired rather than a person with agency. He pulled out his phone, sliding it across the desk, showed Carmine the message thread from the night before. Gia watched her father read, his face going progressively darker. When did this happen? Her answer came quiet. Last night, after the dinner, after you announced the engagement. Carmine's attention snapped to Raphael, and you responded, using her phone, escalating the situation. The justification was simple. I drew a line, made it clear that threatening her has consequences. Someone needed to. The implication landed sharp. Carmine stood slowly, hands flat on his desk. The assertion came dangerous. I protect my daughter. Raphael's counter was brutal. You're selling her to a man under FBI investigation, to someone with 2 ex-girlfriends who disappeared under mysterious circumstances, to a liability who bring federal attention down on your entire organization. That's not protection, that's sacrifice. The accusation hung heavy. Alessia's hand found Carmine's arm, gentle pressure pulling him back from whatever edge he'd been approaching. Her mother's voice came soft but firm. Carmine, listen to what he's saying. But her father wasn't ready to concede. The Russo alliance is critical. We need those shipping routes. Raphael leaned forward. At what cost? Gianna's safety? Her happiness? The stability of your organization when the FBI uses Dante to get to you? He pulled out another document, this one thicker. This is the federal investigation into Dante Russo. Human trafficking, money laundering, 3 counts of assault that were made to disappear. And the witness testimony from one of his ex-girlfriends who's currently in protective custody. She'll testify that he beat her until she miscarried, then threatened her family to keep her quiet. Horror bloomed cold in Gia's chest. She'd known Dante was bad. She hadn't known he was monstrous. Carmine read the document, his face going progressively pale. Where did you get this? The answer came matter-of-fact. I have contacts, and I've been investigating Dante since the first time I heard your name and his in the same sentence 6 months ago. Her father's attention shifted. 6 months? Before the engagement was even discussed? Raphael didn't flinch from the implication. Yes, because I knew eventually you'd try to marry Gianna off for strategic advantage, and I wanted to make sure whoever you chose wasn't a monster. The silence that followed held weight. Carmine looked at Gia for the first time since the meeting started. The question came quieter than before. Did you know about this? About Dante? Her honesty felt necessary. Teo showed me some of it, not all, not this. Carmine turned back to Raphael. Why should I trust this information? You have motive to sabotage the Russo alliance. The admission came without hesitation. I do. I'm not hiding that. But the information is solid. Check with your own sources. Talk to the FBI contacts you have. You'll find the same things I found. Alessia spoke into the tension. Carmine, if even half of this is true, you can't proceed with the engagement. You'll be tying our family to someone who'll bring us down with him when he falls. Gia watched her father wrestle with pride and pragmatism. Saw the moment pragmatism won. His concession came grudging. Fine, I'll look into it. Delay the announcement. Give me time to verify. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. But Raphael wasn't finished. The next question came careful. And Gianna? What happens to her while you're verifying? Carmine's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Raphael's position was clear. I mean, she's not going back to being engaged to Dante. Not even provisionally. Not after those texts. Not after what I've shown you. The challenge in her father's voice was unmistakable. So what are you proposing? The answer came measured but firm. I'm proposing you give me the same chance you gave Dante. Let me court Gianna properly. 6 weeks. Supervised. By your rules. If at the end I haven't proven myself worthy, I'll step aside. But Dante is out completely. Shock rippled through Gia. She stared at Raphael, unable to believe he just proposed supervised courtship to Carmine Castellano. Her father's laugh held no humor. You want me to let you court my daughter? After everything Luca made me promise? After you kissed her in my garden where cameras would catch it? The correction came gentle. I want you to let Gianna choose. Give her options that don't involve forcing her into a marriage that will destroy her. Let me prove I can protect her better than Dante ever could. Carmine studied Raphael for a long moment. Something passed between them that Gia couldn't read. Finally, her father spoke. 6 weeks. Chaperone dates. Family dinners twice weekly. Complete transparency about your business operations. And if I find out you've touched her inappropriately, I'll kill you myself. The agreement came immediate. Understood. Gia found her voice. Don't I get a say in this? Both men turned to her. Carmine's expression held something almost like apology. Her father's question came surprisingly gentle. Do you want this? Do you want Raphael to court you properly? The answer felt obvious. Yes, but I want it to be my choice, not another arrangement between men deciding my future. Raphael addressed her directly for the first time since entering the office. Then choose. Right now. Tell your father what you want. She met his eyes, then her father's. I want the engagement to Dante ended completely. I want time to figure out what I feel without threats or coercion. And yes, I want Raphael to have the same chance to prove himself that any other suitor would get. Under supervision, if that's what it takes for Dad to feel comfortable. Carmine nodded slowly. Then it's settled. 6 weeks starting today. Teo or your mother will chaperone. And Raphael, hurt my daughter, and there's nowhere on earth you'll be safe. The promise came sincere. I have no intention of hurting her. After Raphael left to make arrangements, Alessia pulled Gia aside. Are you sure about this? The question deserved honesty. No, but I'm sure I don't want Dante. And I'm sure I want the chance to see if what I feel for Raphael is real. Her mother's smile held understanding. Then take the chance. Your father will come around. He's stubborn, but he's not stupid. He saw the same things I saw in that office. Curiosity got the better of her. What did you see? Alessia's answer was simple. A man willing to fight your father to protect you. A man who'd been preparing for this conversation for 6 months. A man who looks at you like you're the only thing that matters in any room. That's rare, Piccola. Don't let fear make you throw it away. The first chaperone date happened 3 days later. Raphael picked her up at 10 a.m. with Teo riding shotgun, already complaining about being a third wheel. Her brother's commentary started immediately. So where are we going? Please say somewhere with food. I skipped breakfast for this. Raphael's response held dry amusement. Art Institute. No food allowed inside. Teo groaned. You two are going to discuss paintings for 3 hours while I starve. This is torture. But at the museum, Teo surprised them by actually engaging. He'd studied art history in college before dropping out to work for Carmine, and his observations on the exhibits were sharp and insightful. Raphael asked her the questions that mattered. What do you love about Edward Hopper? She considered the painting before them, Nighthawks, lonely figures in a diner. The way he captures isolation in crowds, how you can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. It's honest. His observation came quiet, like our world. Understanding passed between them, exactly like our world. They spent 2 hours moving through galleries, conversation flowing easily. Raphael didn't dominate or lecture. He listened, asked follow-up questions, remembered details she mentioned in passing. When Teo finally declared he was dying of hunger, they relocated to a cafe across the street. Her brother immediately ordered enough food for 3 people, while Raphael and Gia shared a table by the window. The question came casual but weighted. Your father called me this morning, asked about my business operations. She set down her coffee. Is he checking up on you? The acknowledgement was simple. Thoroughly, which is fair. I'm asking to court his daughter after years of being explicitly forbidden. He'd be stupid not to investigate. Uncertainty crept in. And if he finds something he doesn't like? Raphael's honesty was brutal. Then he finds it. I'm not hiding who I am, Gianna. I've made decisions I'm not proud of. Done things that haunt me. If he asks, I'll tell him the truth. The directness was refreshing and terrifying. Most people would lie. His counter held weight. Most people aren't trying to prove they're worthy of you. Teo returned with a tray overflowing with sandwiches. Did I miss anything important? Gia's response came automatic. No. Her brother's knowing look said he didn't believe her. The family dinners were exactly as uncomfortable as expected. Carmine interrogated Raphael about everything. Business decisions, financial holdings, past relationships, future plans. Her father was methodical and relentless, looking for any crack in the facade. But Raphael never flinched, never deflected. When Carmine asked how many people had died on his orders, Raphael gave an exact number, 7, explained each situation, admitted the guilt he carried. The honesty shocked everyone at the table into silence. Carmine's follow-up came sharp. And you'd make those same decisions again? Raphael's answer held grim certainty. If the alternative was losing people I'm responsible for protecting, yes, I'd make them again. That doesn't mean I sleep well afterward. Something in her father's expression shifted. Not quite approval, but understanding. By the third dinner, Carmine's questions had changed from hostile to strategic. Asking Raphael's opinion on territory disputes, discussing supply chain logistics, treating him less like a threat and more like an equal. Alessia noticed the shift too. She caught Gia after dessert. Your father is warming to him. Relief made her voice tight. You think so? Her mother's certainty was absolute. I know so. Carmine respects strength and honesty. Raphael is giving him both. The fact that he's also clearly devoted to you doesn't hurt. The observation made her pause. Devoted? Alessia's smile was knowing. Piccola, the man looks at you like you're the answer to every question he's ever had. That kind of devotion is rare. Your father sees it. I see it. Everyone sees it except apparently you. The doubt felt necessary to voice. What if it's just forbidden fruit? What if when we're allowed to be together, the attraction fades? Her mother's wisdom came gentle. Then it fades and you find out before making permanent decisions. But I don't think that's what this is. I think you two have been circling each other for years, and finally getting to be honest about it is only making things more intense. Week 4 brought the turning point. Dante made his move. The package arrived at the Castellano estate addressed to Carmine. Inside were photos, surveillance shots of Raphael and Gia from their dates, leaving his penthouse together, her wearing his jacket, intimate moments captured from distance, and a note. Thought you should know what your daughter and Moretti are really doing during their chaperoned dates. A concerned friend. Carmine called an emergency family meeting. The photos were spread across his desk when Gia arrived with Alessia. Her father's voice was dangerously quiet. Explain these. She looked at the images, realized they were taken from angles that made innocent moments look incriminating. Those are from our dates. Teo was there for all of them. Carmine held up one photo. This one shows you leaving Moretti's building at dawn. The memory came clear. The night of the engagement dinner, I stayed in his guest room because I felt unsafe coming home. Another photo. And this one of you wearing his jacket? Her answer was simple. It was cold, he offered. Teo was 10 feet away. But she could see her father's doubt, see him questioning everything. Teo arrived, took one look at the photos. Dad, those are bullshit. Whoever took them deliberately framed shots to make it look worse than it was. I was there. Nothing inappropriate happened. Carmine's attention shifted. You're sure? Her brother's certainty was absolute. I'm sure. They barely touched. Rafe kept his distance. The most scandalous thing that happened was them discussing art for 3 hours while I contemplated death by boredom. The phone rang. Carmine answered, listened, his face going progressively darker. When he hung up, his announcement hit like a bomb. That was Franco Russo. Dante is spreading these photos to other families, claiming Raphael Moretti is dishonoring the Castellano name by conducting an affair with my engaged daughter. Gia's stomach dropped. I'm not engaged to Dante. You ended that. Her father's clarification was brutal. I delayed the announcement. I never formally broke the engagement in Dante's eyes, which means technically you're still promised to him, which means these photos, real or manipulated, are ammunition he's using to force my hand. The threat became clear. He's trying to corner you into choosing him over Raphael. Carmine's agreement was grim. Exactly. If I back Raphael now, it looks like I'm condoning dishonorable behavior. If I go back to Dante, I'm giving in to manipulation and sending you to a man I know is dangerous. Raphael arrived 20 minutes later, summoned by Teo's emergency text. He took one look at the photos and his expression went lethal. The assessment came flat. Dante hired a PI. These are professional surveillance shots. Carmine's agreement was tight. I know. The question is what we do about it. Raphael's proposal came immediate. We call the commission. Dante is violating codes by spreading false accusations about another family. He's trying to force an engagement that's under review, and he's harassing Gianna despite being warned to back off. Her father's counter came sharp. The commission will take weeks to respond. Dante is spreading this now. I need a solution today. The silence stretched heavy with impossible choices. Then Alessia spoke from her position by the window. Her mother's suggestion came calm and certain. Then we get ahead of it. We acknowledge the relationship between Gianna and Raphael publicly. Make it clear she's no longer promised to Dante. Make Dante the one who looks desperate and manipulative instead of you looking dishonorable. Carmine stared at his wife. You want me to publicly bless their courtship before the 6 weeks are up? Alessia's logic was sound. I want you to protect our daughter from being used as a pawn in Dante's power play. The 6 weeks were artificial anyway. You already know Raphael is worthy. You've just been too stubborn to admit it. The accusation hung there. Gia watched her father wrestle with pride and pragmatism for the second time in a month. Finally, he nodded. Fine, but Raphael, you're going to have to prove this publicly. No more hiding. No more careful distance. If we're doing this, we're all in. The agreement came without hesitation. Whatever you need. Carmine's decision was immediate. There's a gala tomorrow night, 500 guests. I'll announce that the Russo engagement is ended and that Raphael Moretti is formally courting Gianna with my blessing. That makes Dante the problem, not us. Relief and terror warred in Gia's chest. This was what she wanted. But the speed and publicity felt overwhelming. Raphael's hand found hers across the desk, the first time he'd touched her in front of her father. Are you okay with this? She looked at their joined hands, then at her father watching them. Yes, I'm tired of hiding what I feel to protect Dante's ego. Carmine's observation came quiet. You love him. The question in the statement made her pause. She looked at Raphael, saw everything in his eyes that she felt reflected back. Her answer came certain. I'm falling. I don't know if it's love yet, but I know I want the chance to find out without threats or manipulation or family politics deciding for me. Her father nodded slowly. Then you'll have that chance. But Gianna, this is going to cause problems. Dante won't take this well. The Russo family will feel insulted. There will be consequences. Raphael's voice came firm. Let me handle the consequences. Just give me the platform to make this official. The gala the next night was massive. Gia wore red, a deliberate choice, a callback to the dress that had started everything 5 years ago. When Raphael saw her, he stopped mid-conversation, something raw and unguarded crossing his expression before he controlled it. His greeting came low enough only she could hear. You're trying to kill me. Her response held no apology. Just reminding you what you're fighting for. Carmine took the stage after dinner. The room fell silent as he began to speak. The announcement came clear and formal. Many of you heard rumors about an engagement between my daughter Gianna and Dante Russo. Those rumors are false. There is no engagement. There never will be. Gianna is being courted by Raphael Moretti with my full blessing and support. Anyone who has issue with this can address me directly. The room erupted in murmurs. Gia watched Dante across the ballroom, his face going from shock to rage to something uglier. He made his way through the crowd toward them, security trailing at a distance. Dante's voice came loud enough for nearby guests to hear. You're making a mistake, Don Castellano. Choosing Moretti over my family will have consequences. Raphael stepped between Dante and Gia, his presence a clear barrier. The only mistake is you thinking you ever had a claim to her. Dante's sneer was ugly. I have my father's agreement. I have the alliance terms we discussed. Your blessing doesn't erase contracts. Carmine's voice cut through. There is no contract. There was a discussion that I've now ended. You're dismissed, Dante. Leave my event before security removes you. But Dante wasn't done. He pulled out his phone, fingers flying across the screen. You'll regret this. All of you. He left, anger radiating from every step, and Gia felt dread settle cold in her stomach because the threat had been too specific, too certain. Raphael's hand found her lower back. He's going to retaliate. Her agreement was grim. I know. What they didn't know was how fast, or how viciously, Dante would strike back. The answer came 72 hours later when Teo disappeared.